A modern semi-truck contains more computing power than the spacecraft that landed on the moon, and yet it can sit dead in a truck stop parking lot for 6 days because nobody with a wrench is allowed to talk to it. That's not a mechanical failure. That's a permissions failure. The engine works. The transmission works. The part that's broken is invisible, a line of code, locked behind a password only the manufacturer holds. Ray Doss has been driving for 22 years. He owns his truck outright. And when its transmission threw a fault code outside Amarillo, Texas, he couldn't fix it. His mechanic couldn't fix it. And the nearest shop authorized to fix it was 160 miles away. By the end of this video, you'll understand the system that made that true, and why it was built that way on purpose. By the time you finish watching, you'll never look at a check engine light the same way again. There are roughly 2 million heavy-duty trucks operating on American highways today. Nearly all of them now run on what the industry calls software-defined architecture. Dozens of electronic control units, all networked, all reporting home. For an owner-operator like Ray, a truck that isn't moving isn't just inconvenient. It's a business bleeding out. Independent estimates put lost revenue from unscheduled truck downtime at over $1,000 a day, fuel contracts missed, freight penalties triggered, a mortgage payment on a truck that's earning nothing. Ray made the decision every trucker eventually makes. Buy the truck, own the asset, control your own destiny. What he didn't know was that ownership on paper and ownership in practice had quietly become two different things. Close-up of a truck's diagnostic port, then cut to a locked service bay door at an authorized dealership. The system responsible for this isn't a single company acting in bad faith. It's a structure, one built over a decade, gateway by gateway, subscription by subscription. Manufacturers didn't set out to trap truckers. They set out to protect a revenue stream. The trap is the byproduct. But this is only the surface layer. Go back to 2014. Automakers and independent repair advocates signed a memorandum of understanding, a handshake agreement to share basic diagnostic data. A year later, in 2015, a companion agreement extended that promise to vehicles over 14,000 pounds. Trucking was covered, in theory. 2014 MOU, 2015 heavy-duty extension. But trucks kept changing. Engines went digital, transmissions went automated. Eaton's UltraShift, Detroit's DT12, each one running proprietary software that only the manufacturer's own diagnostic tool could fully access. Then came the gateway, a secure digital firewall installed in newer trucks, sitting between the diagnostic port and the truck's own computer. Built to stop hackers. It also stops everyone else. 3 words, then pause. Locked. By design. Independent shops responded the only way they could, buying subscription access, port by port, brand by brand. One subscription for the engine, a different one for the transmission, a third for the trailer's ABS system. Costs stacked, complexity stacked. Shops that once needed a socket set now need a laptop, a login, and a monthly invoice just to read a fault code. 3 words, then pause. The toolbox changed. Meanwhile, telematics moved the data even further away. A modern truck doesn't just store its fault codes on board anymore. It beams them to the manufacturer's servers in real time. The dealership sees the problem before the driver does. The independent shop down the road sees nothing until the truck physically rolls into the bay. Manufacturer server room graphic on one side, empty independent repair bay on the other. But here's what most people get wrong. Here's the number that explains everything. Independent shops are estimated to charge 30 to 50% less than authorized dealerships for the same repair. That's not a rounding error. That's the difference between a $3,000 transmission repair and a $4,500 one, on a single job. Now multiply that gap across a fleet, or across a career. A single owner-operator running one truck for 10 years, routed exclusively through dealership service because independent access is blocked, can lose more than the price of a second truck in repair markups alone. Simple animated bar comparing dealership versus independent repair cost for the same job. The diagnostic fee itself tells the story. Walking into a dealership for an unscheduled visit costs $450 to $750 before a single wrench turns, just to be told what's wrong. That's a day's gross revenue for many owner-operators, spent before the actual repair even begins, and the stakes escalate fast. A minor engine repair might run $500 to $3,000, but catch the same problem late because a locked module delayed diagnosis by a week, and you're not looking at a repair anymore. You're looking at a rebuild. Engine overhauls run from $5,000 for limited work to over $40,000 for a full long block replacement. The gap between catching it early and catching it late can exceed $20,000 on a single engine. That's more than most Americans earn in half a year of full-time work, decided not by mechanical failure, but by how fast someone was allowed to look at the problem. This resolves the surface layer from earlier. The structure, not malice, isn't abstract. It's a fee schedule. Here's the counterintuitive turn. The manufacturers aren't lying when they say they're protecting cybersecurity. The gateway is real. The threat is real. Locking down a truck's network from remote attackers is a legitimate engineering problem. Cybersecurity graphic. Network diagram with a lock icon over a truck. But the same lock that keeps out a hacker in another country also keeps out the mechanic in the next town. Security and monopoly in this system run through the exact same door. That's not an accident of bad design. That's the business model. The regulatory fight over that exact door is what's happening right now, and it's closer to resolution than most drivers realize. If you've ever felt like owning a truck outright doesn't mean what it used to, you were right, and almost nobody said it out loud until now. Ownership used to mean control. Today, on a modern Class 8 truck, ownership means you hold the title, make the payment, and carry the liability, while the manufacturer holds the actual keys to the machine's nervous system. Service subscription login screen. Here's what most people don't realize. This exact playbook has already lost in court once. Earlier this month, the Federal Trade Commission secured a 10-year consent decree against John Deere, forcing the company to give farmers and independent shops the same diagnostic software access its own dealers use. The first time federal antitrust law has been applied directly to a software lock instead of a physical parts monopoly. Trucking is watching that case closely because the mechanism is identical. Proprietary software, withheld from anyone outside the authorized network, justified as protection. If it was ruled a monopoly for tractors, the same legal logic applies to an 80,000-pound truck. Congress is already moving. The Repair Act, reintroduced in 2025, would force truck and car manufacturers alike to open diagnostic access to independent shops and owners. It hasn't passed yet, but for the first time, the pressure isn't just coming from mechanics. It's coming from federal regulators with a precedent already on the books, which is why the ending of Ray's story matters more than it first appears. Watching this video puts you ahead of most drivers on the road right now, because most of them still think a locked module is a mechanical problem. It isn't. It's a legal one, and the law is starting to move. Which brings us to what happens next. Ray's truck got fixed. It took 11 days, 1 tow, and a bill that ran $1,400 past the dealership's original estimate. Ray's truck pulling back onto the highway, taillights fading into traffic. He's back on the road now. But the gateway that stopped him is still there, on his truck and on every truck built after it, waiting for the next fault code. The next driver this happens to won't get to choose whether the system changes in time. That choice already belongs to the people writing the software, and to the regulators deciding, right now, whether trucks like his are allowed to be fixed by anyone other than the company that sold them.